Welcome back to another episode of Strip, where we dig beneath the surface of modern dating and relationships to get to the real stuff. Today, we are unraveling what we know as dun 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 rejection. For so many of us, no can feel personal, like it's about your worth, like you failed, or like you're being punished for desiring something. But what if that no is actually a doorway into deeper trust, into clarity, safety, and yes, even intimacy? So we're not only talking about that nasty 9-letter word today, we're also talking about why consent is actually deeply sexy. You do not want to miss this. Throw out the rules, forget the cliches. This isn't about the perfect profile or the perfect date. It's about real connection. It's time to strip away the masks, shed the stories, and drop those old patterns that no longer serve you. Tired of dating advice that doesn't fit? So are we. Welcome to Stripped, Drop Your Patterns, where conscious dating isn't about following a script. It's about embracing your whole self and attracting the kind of love that sets your soul on fire. I'm Rachel J., the connection coach and your host. Let's get real. All right, let's get into it. Nobody likes being told no. We are wired for connection and approval. Rejection, even perceived rejection, can light up the same areas of the brain as physical pain. So it makes total sense that when someone says no, especially in a romantic or sexual context, it can sting. And as we talked about in a previous episode, that feeling of rejection can start at a young age if you were told no by your parents and caregivers for maybe wanting to play the minute that they walked in the door after a long day, or wanting to have an ice cream before dinner, or wanting to watch a movie that was inappropriate for your age. It doesn't matter the reason that you were told no. It's about the feeling that your wants were denied at a very early age. And then when that's compounded by having our natural desires denied or shamed during adolescence and early adulthood, it's easy to internalize the idea that hearing no is rejection of who we are and what we desire. But here's the thing most people never learned. No is not an attack. It's merely information. It's someone being honest about what's true for them, and that honesty actually builds trust, even if it's not what you wanted to hear. And for men, there's often another layer. So many of you were conditioned to pursue, to push through, to prove yourself and acquire what you set out to get. You were taught that desire equals drive and that persistence means power. So when someone says no, it doesn't just feel like a dead end. It can feel like a reflection of your masculinity. Like, I'm not good enough. I must have done something wrong. Or maybe even I shouldn't have even asked. But those stories are just that. They're stories. Because the truth is, a no is simply someone setting a boundary. And healthy boundaries create safety for both people. Now, I want to share a little bit about my work as a certified Cuddlist. And yes, it's exactly what it sounds like. It is consensual, non-sexual touch in a safe, structured setting. How I often describe Cuddlist sessions is that they are the bridge between traditional talk therapy and massage therapy, because your talk therapist cannot touch you. Say if you're grieving and in need of just a heartfelt hug and that feeling of being held and safe. And your massage therapist is not there to hear you unpack your trauma or your recent loss or even just the current goings on in your life. So this is where Cuddlist comes in. But what most people don't realize is that the real magic of Cuddlist work is not just in the cuddling, it's in the communication. Before starting every session, my clients and I would co-create agreements. This is where we talk about preferences, limits, and what both people want and don't want. And in every session, no is not only always on the table, but highly encouraged. So we even begin with a warm-up exercise during this agreement phase at the top, where we practice both of us hearing and saying no. So that helps to take the sting out of hearing no for those who fear rejection. And it also empowers those of us who are people pleasers to set boundaries without feeling like we've hurt someone. And if saying no still feels hard in this context, then I coach clients to offer alternatives. That way they can honor their boundaries without feeling like they're rejecting the other person. Now, clients are often shocked by how healing it is to hear or say no and have that be respected without tension, pressure, or guilt. Typically, the response when we do this warm-up exercise with somebody saying no, the response that we encourage is thank you for taking care of yourself, because that's what a no is. It's somebody taking care of themselves. So when clients realize this healing that comes from being able to say no or hear no in a safe space, they realize that saying no does not ruin the connection. Hearing no does not mean rejection, and honoring a no builds trust faster than any smooth pickup line ever could. And so that is what makes a true yes so powerful. Because when someone knows that they can say no, then their yes means something. It's not compliance, it's choice. And that is where the spark lives. So now we're going to talk about what makes consent sexy. Because if no is a boundary, then yes is an invitation. And when someone gives you a real, full-bodied, freely chosen yes, that is incredibly sexy. Because again, it's not compliance. It's not trying to appease another person and going along to avoid discomfort. It comes from desire. It comes from presence. It comes from trust. And especially in the wake of the Me Too movement, this clarity matters more than ever. #MeToo, we know, was very powerful and extremely necessary. It gave a voice to those who had been harmed and ignored and silenced. And it brought long overdue attention to how power, fear, and coercion show up in intimacy. But the cultural reckoning also created new complexities and some gray areas, because many men were left wondering whether their past behavior had crossed a line, even if they had not meant harm. And many women also began questioning whether what they experienced was just a quote unquote bad date or something much more serious. And this is a feeling that I can relate to myself. So it left a lot of confusion in this gray area. And so some men pulled back entirely. They became hesitant to express interest or initiate contact for fear of being inappropriate or being #MeToo'd. And many women became stuck in their heads, unsure whether it was safe to surrender into connection, chemistry, or desire. But there is a very simple, powerful way forward, and that is to always ask before acting. Because consent is not about legal protection or checking a box. It's about creating safety and clarity and mutual respect. And that is the kind of foundation that actually allows desire to flourish. Now, when you know someone is saying yes because they want to and not because they feel obligated to or afraid to say no, then that yes becomes electric. It creates space for real intimacy. So if you're someone who wants deeper connection, more honesty, and more meaningful intimacy, consent is not a formality. It is an act of care. It is not a mood killer. It is clarity. Consent is an invitation to meet someone, not just physically, but emotionally and energetically. It makes space for both people to actually relax in that moment because both people know that they're wanted, chosen, and safe. When someone says yes, and you know that it's not out of pressure or fear or obligation, but out of actual wanting, then that's where you can really meet each other. And that is sexy as hell. So, here is what I want to leave you with. Consent is not the end of desire. It is the beginning. It's where the real intimacy can start. And a no is not a rejection of you. It's just a reflection of someone knowing themselves and trusting you enough to be honest. So when someone tells you no, hear it. Hear it and thank them. A clear no means that you can trust their yes because they're not afraid to speak up when something doesn't feel right. It removes that gray area of wondering whether they're just going along to avoid conflict, even if they're uncomfortable or not ready. And this also refers to platonic requests as well. I just want to make a point about saying this, that this isn't only about in romantic or sexual situations. Setting healthy boundaries can be so powerful in every aspect of your life. For example, if a friend or family member or a neighbor asks you for a favor, and you care about this person and you would love to help them, but you would be overextending yourself because you already have a busy day, or it's just not something that you feel really good about doing. If you say yes out of obligation and feeling like it's the polite thing to do, or wanting to be a people pleaser, and again, saying no feels like a rejection of something that that person needs, then you're not doing it from a full yes. And you might feel resentment, and then that resentment can leak out. Everything is energy, right? Whereas if you can say yes and commit, then you both end up feeling good about you going to pick up your neighbor's mom from the airport or whatever it may be, right? There's just a very strong difference between saying yes because you feel pressure or obligation or just wanting to be nice or be liked or be agreeable versus being able to say, I would love to help you. However, I just don't have the capacity right now, or I have a very full day, or I'm not able to meet for lunch this week. However, right, this is where I coach people on offering alternatives to find where their yes is. I'm not able to meet you for lunch this week. However, my calendar looks pretty open in a couple of weeks, and I would love to meet you for lunch then. Let's pencil that in. Right? So then you're not doing something where you're going to feel resentful and maybe even end up flaking later, which never is good for anybody. Another place this can be really beneficial and powerful in your life is if you're a business owner and you have clients and perhaps the clients are asking you for something that is not part of the agreement. It is fully up to you to say yes to that request, but you're not obligated to. And I would recommend only saying yes if you feel like you can say yes without zero resentment. It's okay to give more than what you originally agreed to in situations if you feel 100% good about doing it. If there is any hesitation whatsoever, then it's a no. It's a no until it can be a yes. So again, a clear no means that you can trust their yes and they can trust your yes because they know that you're not afraid to speak up when something doesn't feel right and that your yes will actually mean something. It removes that gray area of wondering whether a person is just going along to avoid conflict. And if you can meet someone else's no with respect, with presence, and with curiosity, then you're already ahead of 90% of people out there. And when you hear no, thank that person for modeling healthy boundaries so that you can feel better about saying no in situations that you're not a hell yes to. When coaching my clients on boundaries, I invite them to check in with their gut before answering a yes or no question. If their gut reaction is not a hell yes, then it is a no. Full stop, and no is a complete sentence. So my invitation for you, dear listener, is to try this in your own life. Check in with your gut, and if you are not a hell yes to what you're being asked, then take your inquiry a step further to explore why it's not a hell yes. Maybe you're completely uninterested in what you're being offered or invited to. Maybe it's not a good time, and maybe you don't know why. If it's a no because you're not in the mood or you don't have time, etc., then you might offer an alternative, something that you are a hell yes to. This is a great approach for those of us with people-pleasing tendencies because you don't have to feel like you're rejecting or letting the other person down, but you're also not compromising your own wants and needs. Remember, you do not have to have a reason for saying no. You just have to know that anything other than a hell yes is a no, and no is a complete sentence. You do not have to give a reason. Real connection is not about getting everything you want. It is about meeting what's real and honoring that within the other person and yourself. And that, my friend, is sexy as hell. Thanks for tuning into Stripped. If this episode gave you something to think about or something to feel, I'd love it if you shared it with someone else who needs to hear it. And as always, if you're curious about exploring your own patterns or building deeper connection in your dating life, you can find out more about working with me, the connection coach, in the show notes below. And just a little quick disclaimer, I no longer offer Cuddlist sessions, but if that is a format of alternative or complementary therapy that you feel you would benefit from, I invite you to go to Cuddlist.com. There are Cuddlists throughout the country and even some international. So you can find Cuddlists who are active in your area. And it really is a great opportunity to find comfort and safety and practice boundaries in a non-sexual format where you can feel safe and held and comforted and seen. So until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and keep coming home to yourself. Bye.